Happy Monday morning. It's about 11 a.m. So we all woke up this morning to the news that Donald Trump sent a letter to a bunch of ambassadors and to the Prime Minister of Norway, Jonas Gahr Store, saying in essence that because Norway didn't give me the Nobel Peace Prize, I'm going to use that as justification to launch a military invasion of Greenland, which is basically a province of Denmark, which has been a NATO ally of the United States going back almost 80 years. Donald Trump is going to militarily invade an ally because another ally didn't give him an award. The insanity of this is difficult to measure and comprehend. So every time in international relations and things like this, one of the first stops that I make on the internet is I go to the website for the magazine The Atlantic, and I see if columnist Anne Applebaum has weighed in. She is an expert on all things right-wing and all things Europe and all things authoritarian in relation to Europe. And so she has a column out this morning titled "Trump's Letter to Norway Should Be the Last Straw. Will Republicans in Congress ever step in?" She begins her article by saying, "Let me begin by quoting in full the letter that the President of the United States of America yesterday sent to the Prime Minister of Norway. The text was forwarded by the White House National Security Council to ambassadors in Washington and was clearly intended to be widely shared. Here it is. Dear Jonas, like they're buddies on a first-name basis with one another. Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, all caps, I guess he's stopped 9 or 10 wars now, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace with a capital P for some reason. Although it will always be predominant. I'm going to start that again. His sentence structure, his punctuation, his random use of capitalization makes his form of the written word almost unreadable. Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8+ wars, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China, speaking of Greenland. And why do they have a, quote, right of ownership, close quote, anyway? There are no written documents. It's only a boat that landed there hundreds of years ago, but we had boats landing there also. I have done more for NATO than any person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. All of those words were capitalized. Thank you, exclamation point, President Donald John Trump. First of all, his sentence, Denmark cannot protect Greenland from Russia or China. That's what the NATO treaty is for. That's what the NATO alliance is for. That's what Section 5 of the NATO treaty is for. All NATO nations protect all other NATO nations from Russia and China. That's what NATO is for. That's what the treaty is for. That's what the treaty does. Then he goes on to say there are no written documents. Why does Denmark have a right of ownership? There are no written documents. It's only a boat that landed there hundreds of years ago. He knows absolutely nothing about history. He knows absolutely nothing about history, and also doesn't care that the residents of Greenland are very happy to be connected to Denmark. I have done more for NATO than any person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. And the explicit threat is that if NATO doesn't give me Greenland, I'm going to destroy NATO, which has been in place for 80 years and has been largely responsible for peace with the United States and Europe, and has put a security arrangement in place that has allowed for economic prosperity that among all these nations that is unparalleled in human history. The world is not secure unless the United States has complete and total control of Greenland. I don't know why he has such a boner for Greenland, but he really does. Her article continues. One could observe many things about this letter. One is the childish grammar, including the strange capitalizations. Another is the loose grasp of history. Donald Trump did not end 8 wars. Greenland has been Danish territory for centuries. Its residents are Danish citizens who vote in Danish elections. There are many written documents establishing Danish sovereignty over Greenland, including some signed by the United States. And now he's going to destroy NATO unless they give it to him. Yet what matters isn't the specific phrases, but the overall message. Donald Trump now genuinely lives in a different reality, dementia, one in which neither grammar nor history nor the normal rules of human interaction now affect him. Also, he really is maniacally and unhealthily obsessive about the Nobel Peace Prize. The Norwegian Nobel Committee, not the Norwegian government, and certainly not the Danish government, determines the winner of that prize. They have nothing to do with Greenland. Yet Trump now not only blames Norway for failing to give it to him, but is using that as a justification for a military invasion of Greenland. Think about where this is leading. One possibility, anticipated this morning by financial markets, is a damaging trade war. That has already started. Tariffs going back and forth. Another is an American military occupation of Greenland. Try to imagine this. The U.S. Marines arrive in the island's capital. Perhaps they kill some Danes, perhaps some American soldiers die, and then what? If the invaders were Russian, they would arrest all of the politicians, put gangsters in charge, shoot people in the street for speaking Danish, change school curricula, and carry out fake referendum to rubber stamp the conquest. Is that our plan as well? If not, then what is it? This would not be the occupation of Iraq, which was difficult enough. U.S. troops would need to force Greenlanders, citizens of a treaty ally, to become Americans against their will. For the past year, American allies around the world have tried very hard to find a theory to explain Trump's behavior. But in the end, the president himself defeats all attempts to describe a Trump doctrine. He is locked into a world of his own, determined to win every encounter, whether an imaginary competition for the Nobel Peace Prize or a protest from a mother of small children objecting to his masked armed paramilitary in Minneapolis. These contests matter more to him than any long-term strategy. And of course, the need to appear victorious matters much more than America's prosperity and well-being. The people around Trump could find a way to stop him, as many did during his first term. But in his second term, those people seem too corrupt or power-hungry to even try. That leaves Republicans in Congress as the last barrier. Cool. They owe it to the American people and to the world to stop Trump from acting out his fantasy in Greenland and doing permanent damage to American interests. He is at risk of alienating friends in not only Europe, but also India, whose leader Trump also snubbed for failing to nominate him for a Nobel Prize, as well as South Korea, Japan, Australia, and on and on. Years of careful diplomacy, billions of dollars in trade, are now at risk because senators and representatives who know better have refused to use the powers they have to block him. Now is the time. So who thinks Republicans in Congress are actually going to do something? Many of them are communicating to the White House that if Trump goes through with this, that they will end his presidency, they will impeach him, they will remove him. Maybe people are really getting sick and tired of his bullshit, and they're ready. Maybe Republicans in the Senate are finally ready to swap him out for J.D. Vance. Who knows?